Superintendent Castañeda, Chair Guzman Ortiz, members of the board, and student advisors, my name is Joaquin Lara Midkiff, and I'd like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to be considered for this role. I'd like to acknowledge and appreciate the challenging nature of these unusual circumstances. Now, especially when it comes to education, I believe it's important to be forthcoming, to foreground who we are and how we arrived here. The life-changing power of education was first rendered material to me as a kid. My father left home to go to college. My father, who hails from an indigenous Nahua community in the eastern mountains of Guerrero, Mexico. My father, who failed sixth grade 3 times. My father, who crossed the border. My father, who worked as a migrant farm worker. I think about my beloved mother, a hardworking, single mom who has made a difference through her sterling 35-year career in state service dedicated to the public good. My mother, who met my father while working in a cannery, one of the 4, sometimes 5 jobs she had to juggle as she earned her way through school as the first in her working-class family to go to college. My mother, whose sacrifices have made possible any success I may enjoy. In my own life, this transformational relationship became personal nearly 20 years ago, when one reason more than any other prompted my family to leave behind life in the valley countryside and move to Salem. And that was an unparalleled public education. And for us in particular, the opportunity for me to learn and develop an academic vernacular in Spanish, the language of our household. I've come to understand that Salem-Keizer Public Schools is excellent precisely because of the people who devote their careers to its impact and the many diverse, fledgling minds that grow in its care. My public school education provided me with foundation for a lifetime. Friends from all backgrounds, unmatched music education, devoted teachers who I've seen tested and burn out during the many challenges that this district has faced over the decades. And as I grew increasingly ill, dropping out of both 7th and 11th grades, district staff proved a support system that buoyed me through turbulent waters. When I went on to eventually win admission to one of the most competitive universities in the world, it was that intimate cohort of a dozen or so dual language kids and teachers, the reason for my being in this district in the first place, who are among my biggest and loudest supporters. And it is this vital community of learners to which I have, in a small way, given back over the last year and a half through my time on the district's Equity Advisory Committee. As the district faces steep challenges, it is with enormous purpose and privilege, in the spirit of knowing the transformative role this district must continue to play in both the lives of individuals and the health of our communities, while balancing long-term financial sustainability, negotiating painful reduction decisions, and the reform of a broken funding formula. It is in this spirit that I submit myself for consideration to complete the remaining term left by the vacancy of Director Avila. That's who I am. Now I'm going to go ahead and answer the questions in the order in which they have been presented to me. First, the 3 most pressing priorities the board must address in the coming month. The work of the school board is always academic achievement and a successful school year. However, the looming budget crisis is the issue that demands our attention in this moment. And not just because of its scope and urgency, but because of the real-world impacts it will have on our staff and communities. Between now and April, the board must sustain its focus on labor relations, making good faith overtures to our Salem-Keizer Education Association represented staff to reach an equitable agreement, as was done with the tentative contract reach of ASCII ESP. We all recognize the turmoil and hardship that a strike would have on our youth and families. And having read both final offers from February, I believe an agreement should be possible, and that despite the impasse, both the union and the district must maintain this as their primary objective. Nevertheless, I am awake to the reality that every day without an agreement, a strike comes closer into view. Therefore, commensurate effort must be invested into ensuring that should a historic strike come to pass, the district is in as best a position as is possible to support youth, teachers, staff, parents, communities, and that includes feeding youth who rely on our services and working with teachers to minimize learning setbacks. And last, the board must be effective champions of the district's budget priorities and financial reality. We are representative for a reason, and while we represent constituencies, we also telegraph the realities that our district is facing to all of our families, especially those in our respective zones. It is incumbent upon us to be clear and responsive as we work with families and schools to guide them through what are challenging times. This is true now with the uncertainties of a strike and will only grow more important as budget constraints continue to materialize in the spring. Second, addressing good governance. As I mentioned in my written materials, effective governance, particularly in times of anxiety, involves embodying transparency and accountability while articulating strong, clear, and achievable goals that for the district center academic achievement, safety, and belonging. This can only be done through sincere and humble collaboration with every area of our schools and our public life. Everyone should have a voice in the conversations that are unfolding. And all too often, communities across the district, often precisely those most impacted by the changes this district faces, communities like mine, these are the ones that are marginalized and passed over. As the board to the most diverse school system in Oregon, it is our privilege and our responsibility to shepherd those conversations and ensure that the diversity of our Salem-Keizer community is reflected. Question 3 asks what I know about the budget. Here's what I know. I know that over the last 5 years, the district has seen decreased enrollment, the addition of over 400 FTE staff, deserved 14% pay increases, the infusion and subsequent rollback of pandemic dollars, and that taken together, none of these precipitated the nearly $60 million budget shortfall that awaits us in 2024-2025. Measures 5 and 50 limit property tax dollars available for public education. I know that 28% of the state's general funds pick up the tab, and legislators for decades have acknowledged that this help, as it is insufficient. I know that the Student Success Act was a Band-Aid, that Oregon's quality education model calls for serious scrutiny. Governor Kotek has indicated 2025, a legislative budget year, will be a year for additional investments in education, and part of our responsibility is to be diligent advocates, ensuring those investments are transformative and meet the needs of our district. And in the meantime, we must navigate the bitter process of balancing an unbalanceable budget. Fourth and finally, I've been asked about expertise. In addition to my deep personal ties to this district, including having a 7th grader in the household that serves as a daily window into the new and real challenges of learning today, I would bring a lifetime of experience in the farm worker justice movement and nearly a decade working directly with our local communities, including in my current role at the Capacis Leadership Institute, where I work with programs that serve youth and indigenous communities, grow our multi-million-dollar assets, and perform legislative advocacy. My public service includes appointments to offices at the local and state level, where I have been working in policy areas as diverse as disability, mass transit, human rights, and educational equity. Above all, I would bring my experience, my expertise, serving the West Salem community in particular, demonstrated during my service on the Board of Directors for Chariots, our transit agency, representing Subdistrict 1. In closing, once more, I'd like to thank you for your time and your thoughtful consideration during this process, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve our Salem-Keizer families in this capacity. Thank you and be well.